we go. We got it.
Well, good evening, everybody. Gosh, what an interesting, entertaining past few minutes we've had here.
Yeah.
Firstly, as you can tell, I'm in load shedding, so hence the very bright light on my face. I'm in the middle of 4 hours, so for the next hour and a half, I hope my laptop holds out, but hopefully it will. And I have with me Mr. Fox again tonight. So I want to just say to you, welcome, Mr. Fox. How are you? I'm so happy to have you back with me again.
I'm doing well, and I'm happy to be back with you. And you've given me the opportunity to talk about this really sort of strange channeling material.
Absolutely. It's absolutely fascinating. And, we were having a little bit of an off-air chat earlier on, and I was saying that obviously, we can tell that there are lower vibrating people on the planet because of the action some of them do, right? But it's been very interesting also just watching people in general and not wanting to judge, because I think it's very easy to judge, but really more from an observational point of view, as to how, I was watching a show on Dr. Phil, which I seldom do, but it somehow caught my eye. And it was really this horrific story about this family in trouble, and the father swearing at the wife in the most horrific ways, beating her up in front of the kids, having a picture of his girlfriend on his exercise bike while she's there to motivate him to lose weight. All these things, and the ongoing emotional and mental abuse is quite astounding. So it's been very interesting to observe that. I mean, that really is quite amazing. I mean, you must see that a lot, right?
I've seen some crazy stuff in my life, and people have done some crazy, sort of dark things to me for sure. And and I don't watch much television because of how, I see it sort of instilling a sense of narcissism in people. And that sort of allows for this behavior to happen. And not that this behavior didn't exist before, we had television and other forms of communication, but you see that it sort of encourages that, these television, these programs, movies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually watched something very interesting this week, and I don't know who the guy was that was interviewing the other gentleman. I couldn't find their names. It was one of those 5 or 6 minute shorts.
Yeah.
And this guy was saying, and I don't know how that correlates with what you're saying, so I'd be interested to get your take on it.
Yeah.
That there are about 21 reptilian star systems just in this galaxy, on this side of the galaxy.
Yeah.
And basically what they do is they take over planets.
Yeah.
And then they literally turn the inhabitants into slaves, but productive slaves, because they need they need slaves to do their work, right? So they literally come here and dumb us down with technology, with food, the media, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Which I found very interesting. And he said the one advantage that we have that they don't have is we have consciousness, which they don't have. Right. So the minute we raise our consciousness, it's game over for them. So it really is about raising our frequency so that we are not subjected to this. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I'm sure to a certain extent, it's about raising our frequency, but also I think it's about, having knowledge of the way that these people work, or these beings work. It's talked about in the Cassiopean material about the Orion group, and it's also talked about in the raw material, the Orion group. So there is, I guess, a planet that these service to self beings live upon, and they call them in general, the Orion group. And, from what I understand, they are, reptilian. And supposedly they do have a large influence on, the chaos we're experiencing on our planet. And, I'm not sure if they're necessarily trying to, in the modern sense of the word, make slaves out of us. I think it goes a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
To control us in a way where they keep us in chaos and in ignorance, and they're able to somehow use that to their advantage, whether it just be to help them polarize to a greater extent towards whatever density they're moving towards. Yeah, most of the ones that I think that we would deal with here would be from the fourth density, because the fifth density service to self beings don't necessarily come out of their contemplative state so much to venture to other planets. So they would have their minions traveling, or they could probably have influence on us without even traveling, through their technology and power of mind.
Well, that would make a lot of sense if we just look at what's happening around, at the moment.
Yeah.
Because when we're just looking at the shadow government, for example,
yeah.
No one really knows what's going on. Well, I guess people do, but we're getting inklings of what that's about. And it's, more and more we're hearing that it's their connection with star systems and star beings, obviously not of the higher vibrating ones either.
Right. And and I was going to say that the shadow government, they may have a certain amount of contact with these beings, I'm sure on many different levels. And I think that they're being manipulated. They're not necessarily being helped as we would think, because they're just pawns in the larger game. And I don't think that they really have a complete understanding of what's going on here. That's
kind of like why I say it's like they seem to be manipulated by something much greater, a much greater force,
right?
Than they even know. They've been lied to. They've been told this. They're going to be this, and they're going to get that, and they're going to get their own planets or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. The Cassiopeians talk about this, about how some of these shadow government figures will meet with some of these service to self beings, and they have their own language that they'll talk amongst one another in front of the humans in the shadow government, and they are trying to come up with, the humans here in the shadow government are trying to come up with a technology to be able to translate their language, and to figure out, because I think they understand that to some extent they're being manipulated, and they're not sure to what extent, but they're going to keep moving forward, because I think that they have gotten themselves in, so deep that they really can't back out. And also I think that, to some extent they're benefited by these beings and whatever their plan is for our world, which from what I understand is, at the end, they're trying to hijack our shift in the fourth density positive. But, I'm sure it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that. It's just very interesting, because it definitely makes sense, that they are being manipulated. And as you say, they've now got these frequency translators or language translators that are, so they can understand the other being's language. It's very crazy, actually. Very interesting. Wow. Yeah. I would definitely like to chat more about that as well at a later stage.
Yeah.
Because what I'd really like to talk about with you today as well is go further into detail of the, let's say the first 4 densities for now, see how far we get. If we can really just talk more about first, second, third, and then fourth density, and then the positive as well as the negative.
Okay.
beginning at the first where we've kind of ascertained from previous discussion that first is the really minerals and water, right? So it's really just simplistic.
Yeah. So, each planet has to go through all its densities. And before the planet is formed, it's already come up with its plan laid out, like the parameters of how it'll move through those densities and what exists on the planet and whether it shifts into fourth density positive or negative once it gets to that stage. Yeah. So because each planet has to go through first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and beyond. But at the fourth level, it can shift either positive or negative, and that's already set within the planet. So the planet cannot be influenced in a way where it's decided before it's formed that it's going to move into fourth density positive. It can't and never has been shifted into a density that it didn't already choose. So the plan gets laid out for the planet, and then it's formed, and then it has to go through, like I said, all the different densities. And the first density is what they call the cycle of awareness, and it lasts approximately 2 billion years. And the first entities upon that planet are water, fire, air, and earth. Now, at first, all that exists within chaos. It's like the energy is undirected and very random. And then slowly, over time, it's able to, those entities, water, fire, air, and earth, slowly gain self-awareness through interacting with light and fire and wind. And so the planet, you could say, is in somewhat of a chaotic state. All these the earth moving around, the fire burning, and turning water into steam, and that interacting with air. And over billions of years, eventually those minerals and water start to coalesce together. So let's say that the oceans turn into a sea or a lake or a river, and over time it creates the opportunity for viable life to form. And that's what brings that planet into the ability to shift into second density and have second density creatures, plants, animals, and they call that a cycle of growth. And that second density is the longest density, and that density is 4.5 billion years long. And so the second density animals, entities, grow out of the sea and the lake and the river, and they move upon and underneath the earth or in the oceans, and eventually they're able to gain enough experience to then start a third density cycle, the cycle of self-awareness. Now, there could be, like during a planet's first and second density cycle, there can be other entities that come and visit that planet. It's not walled off from any visitation. So, there could be a planet nearby, and those third density inhabitants could have the ability to create technology that allows them to travel to a second density or first density planet. And
why would they want to do that? What would the intention be to travel to a lower density planet?
It could be, traveling to a first density planet to harvest water or minerals from that planet, or to study the planet. Also, same thing with them visiting the second density planet. They can visit that planet and interact with the plants and animals. They can, harvest food or they could come down and create a civilization upon that second density planet and live there for some time. Yeah, but eventually, when the planet starts to move into third density, those people, those entities, from what I understand, would have to leave. Yeah, and
Okay.
also fourth and fifth and sixth density entities could visit those lower density planets, aside from third, and we can get into that in a second. So, was that clear enough? The understanding of the first density cycle, and then
Yeah, 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 yeah. You've explained it brilliantly.
which um, those second density creatures entities don't have self-awareness, and so eventually the planet moves into the shortest density, which is third density, and that's the density of self-awareness. And they say that a planet spends 75,000 years within what they call that the master cycle. So it's broken up into 3 smaller cycles of 25,000 years each. So the planet moves into third density. Second density, some of the second density entities end up shifting into third density slowly over time. They're given the opportunity. And we move through all these densities because our planet is spiraling through the galaxy, and there are bands that come off, vibrational bands that come off the galactic center. And as our planet spirals into those different bands, those vibrational frequencies are what changes the densities. Yeah, it's sort of like the yugas in Hinduism. They talk about the yugas. Sri Yukteswar. I don't know if he has a book out that breaks down in detail the different yugas. And so those yugas that they talk about in the ancient scriptures of India is sort of laying out these cycles. Yeah, and they talk about how these emanations are coming from the galactic center. Our planet is spiraling through and being influenced by those emanations coming from the galactic center. So the planet starts to move into the right frequencies, influences our third density to start, and that influences the second density entities to start to move towards that self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 3 opportunities to graduate into either fourth density negative or fourth density positive.
Positive. Wow.
Or service to others.
Yeah.
And so they also call it the density of choice. And so, they say that the first distortion that was put upon us as spiritual beings by the one infinite creator was our free will choice. Yeah. And that choice is being given to us in third density. You choose. Yeah. You either choose to service self or to service others. Or you can go through a whole third density cycle and exist in what they call the gray area in between. You could not get the point of third density and just have to do another whole master cycle over again.
What would that be if you talk about the gray cycle and not get what it's about? Can you give me an example of the type of people?
Yeah, I mean, the gray area in between would just be someone who, just moved through life and didn't recognize their spiritual center, yeah, and didn't become self-aware of that. And never really decides to get on any sort of spiritual path, whether it be, the spiritual path of service to self or spiritual path of service to others. I know it's wild.
So they just kind of exist. And I mean, or would you really be talking about someone who leads a very mundane type life? Get up in the morning, go to work, come back.
Maybe so, but we couldn't necessarily judge someone by living a mundane life. in a sense, because, there could be people that, are on their last lifetime, almost ready to graduate to fourth density positive, but they're here just to learn, maybe a couple,
Observe.
maybe and maybe learn a couple different lessons.
Yeah.
Get those lessons, and then can graduate to fourth density positive. So you really can't make a judgment on people. That's that.
I guess what I'm asking, and I didn't mean to judge. I guess what I'm asking.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but just to be clear to the viewers as well, because it probably did sound a bit like I was.
Yeah.
But it's more just, is it someone who will exist from day to day, maybe drinks too much, smokes too much, gives their power away, and doesn't actually interact with life in a real, authentic way?
Right. And just goes from one distraction to the next.
Yeah. Okay. Get it.
Or, wake up during the week, go to work, come home, watch some television, have a couple beers, go to bed. Weekends, watch sports, sit in front of the television, no real depth of existence there.
Yeah. Hang out with friends, hunt.
But you would have to deeply and closely observe someone's life to really understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And could be going through that and work in a profession that is of service to others, and they talk about religion and seem like a very deeply spiritual person, but their everyday life is in service to others, and that's really all that's needed during this cycle. You can become harvestable into fourth density positive, at any time in that 75,000 year cycle, at any time within your life. You can.
Now let's talk about this word harvesting and harvestable, as you call it. I mean,
and that's
that can sound quite scary. Yeah. So I'm ready for I'm being harvested right now. So can you explain what that means?
Yeah, they talk about it in a sense of fruit becoming ripe. Yeah.
Okay.
So your self-awareness deepens enough, and you've polarized enough in either direction to be sort of harvested like fruit in a sense. And so no one's going to come down here and chop your head off and harvest you in that way. Yeah.
So I think that's what the fourth density negative guys got wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So speak to me about the graduating. So now, if we've now become self-aware in third density of choice, we have free will and choice. And as you say, Creator has given us this free will and choice in the third density, which is very challenging somehow, because I think, especially after you just come out of second, where you're not self-aware, now suddenly becoming self-aware, and you've got all of this stuff to wade through, which is why it's great that it's done in 3 little increments, right? So we don't have to get it all at once. Can be a bit overwhelming, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, and not not all planets in third density go through the same turmoil that we've gone through. One reason why our third density is so difficult, especially now, is because it's a planet that is allowing for a mixed harvest. So what that means is that some planets in their third density cycle are pretty much only set up for people graduating the fourth density positive. And some planets, which is very rare, are set up where it's a fourth density negative harvest. So everyone on the planet is working towards harvesting fourth density negative. But with this planet, it's a mixed harvest. And they say only about 30% of the planets allow for a mixed harvest. And that's we're living together with other people that are trying to harvest negative. So especially towards the end of the master cycle, when there's a mixed harvest possible, it creates a lot of chaos.
Yeah. But isn't that beautiful though? Because through the chaos, we find the calm. And it would really be, and it would make sense to me why, let's say when you're going through the master cycle of third density, where you really having to, I would say discern is the word I would use, because you would need to practice discernment in the utmost way in order to get back to, let's say, with fifth density being knowing, right? So you would need to really go into all forgetting in order to be all remembering. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was going to say about the moving into fourth and the mixed. Oh, I just had something on my mind and I completely forgot what I was going to say because it was important. Let's just keep talking about this and it'll probably come up. So yeah, so mixed density or mixed polarity harvest and how difficult that is. And so, of course, as we get closer to the end, there's this friction that's happening. And one thing that it is to our advantage is that since there's this chaos, there's actually more opportunity to be of service to others. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a positive thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's like we're really being taken to the core. We're really being shaken about like a old sheet, and really being shaken. And we've got to really find our core, because that is going to be the thing that enables us to make the choice, like to do the right thing at a bad time, where, let's say, if you haven't done all the inner cleaning, if you will, interior work, right? Yeah. That's when you're going to make, in my opinion, or what I'm thinking, the negative choice, the temptation, the inability to know that you have the ability to create abundance just by resonating in a certain frequency, by raising your vibration, that you do have the ability to heal your own body, that you do have the ability to connect psychically and telepathically with other beings when you're resonating on that frequency. But when you haven't done the interior work, you're going to go down to those lower rungs, because you're then going to think, because if we look at that, really, they're operating on a huge fear of not having. Because if we look at the money, power, greed, why people literally sell their souls, is because it's coming from a fear of not having. So they will sell themselves and their mothers and their children and gosh knows what all else in order to get that recognition, right? What do you say about that? What's your take on that?
Well, that's the way that the service to self sort of set this up, because, as you enter those states of lack or of strong desire for things that you may not have, that gives the service to self people an opportunity to polarize greater towards service to self.
Absolutely.
So when they get you off of your path, that puts them more firmly on theirs.
Exactly. And that's how that's the dumbing down process, which is the media, the food, technology. I mean, everything is good in its, without media and technology, we wouldn't have this conversation. Without food, we couldn't survive. But, it's about the quality as opposed to the quantity. And I think what we've obviously been deceived with is that quantity is quality. Right. So the more money you have, the more quality person you are, because you can afford all the luxuries in life. Yeah. So we've been programmed, I guess, on whatever level, to believe that when you are not interested in having tons of boats and cars and what have you, but you're really interested in living a simplistic life,
Yeah.
And not dyeing your hair or whatever it might be, that you are now not seen as someone who's socially acceptable. In many ways, that's the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just more forms of distraction.
Exactly.
From making that choice to serve others. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wow. So it really is. Now it makes a lot more sense to me. The penny dropped as to why. Obviously being the planet of choice, why some choose third and some choose positive and some choose negative, because they really have not done the interior work to really understand that richness, your gold, is within. Right.
Yeah.
And not in how much bling bling you have on your fingers and around your neck.
Yeah. And that would be important for someone to understand that was on the service to others path, and the service to self path is completely opposite of that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Raw Material talks about how both of those paths are legitimate paths to knowing, to a greater extent, the one infinite creator.
Yeah.
Although going down the service to self path ends at the end of fifth density. So when a service to self entity reaches the end of fifth density, there's a choice that has to be made to actually switch to sixth density positive, because they can go no further than that, which is interesting. So
very interesting.
So you can choose in third density to harvest negative, and go through this what is considered, just as a legitimate and viable path to the creator as service to others. But
it's just a different way.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
Sorry?
No, and I was just going to say that it all comes together in sixth density, because everything beyond sixth density is what would be considered the positive path.
It's like that beautiful Hindu saying that goes, there are many roads that lead to the top of the mountain, and the only one that is wrong is the person running around telling everyone else that they're on the wrong path.
Right. Yeah. But the good thing for us is there's very few, from what I understand, very few entities on this planet consciously moving towards service to self. But it only takes a handful to screw up the whole planet.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, obviously it's like creating the willing slaves. The willing slaves would be the ones that feed the celebrities, feed the politicians, so you have these, you're saying, yes, we're all going to go for the zappity-doo because it's the right thing to do. The doctor told me, the government told me, the nurses told me, so it's that real kind of mentality of following the crowd. And that's how they've managed to dumb us down, is through the media, etc. Where they've taken, I think, a lot of people's power, and they'll do so early in life. That's why they're going to go for the kids so early, right?
Yeah.
They target the kids, because once they've got the kids' minds warped from an early age, it's very difficult to get a child to then change later on. Obviously, the earlier they create, whether it's trauma or whether it's conditioning, and it's been over so many years that it's through schooling, it's through church, it's through the family unit, So, Mr. Fox, my battery is about to die. I've got probably 5 minutes left.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, we can wrap this up if you would like. Yeah.
So I want to say to you that please, we will definitely have you back 2 weeks' time again if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
I love these conversations. I really, really, really do. Yeah. It's so juicy and so meaty, because it just opens up so many levels. Meaty, listen to me. We're not even meaty. Where did that come from? Like something sprang in my mouth, and I know you don't eat meat either. How interesting. Anyway, caught that. I mean, obviously someone's having fun with me tonight.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's amazing to be able to talk with you about these things because it opens up so many levels for discussion. And I can't wait to chat more with you about that. And I'm just so sorry I've got to end our conversation, cut it short for tonight, but we will definitely see you back in 2 weeks' time again, yeah?
Yeah, sounds good.
Is there anything you wanted to still add on tonight's conversation?
No, you can wait until next time.
Yeah. Great. Okay, guys. Well, I think that's super, super interesting. Going through the different densities. I definitely have, it's not even things that I thought I was missing, but when we talk about this, it makes me realize that there are so many missing pieces of the puzzle.
Definitely.
Through these understandings and these conversations, which is so liberating. So thank you. Thank you for your genius, and thank you for putting this all together, and thank you for sharing it with us. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Absolutely. And then we'll see you back in 2 weeks' time again.
Sounds good.
Okay, guys and girls, God bless you all. Take good care of yourselves. As you can see, Dark Vader has breathed the shadowy breath on me here tonight. And I've got a bright face and a candle in the background and feet above my head. So yeah, everything is good here in Africa. And I say, God bless you all. Take good care of yourselves. And we will see you in just a few days. Tomorrow with Jessie Zabota. Yes. Take good care of yourselves. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.